So we talked about, how to find the clients and how to get and keep the clients. One of the things that I think you mentioned and wanted to just definitely reiterate on as well is that clients, generally what we're seeing with the gig economy, it seems like it's all kind of internet based. So do you find that you have a higher technology understanding by your gig clients than maybe a paper mill, something more traditional like that?
Yeah, I think it's becoming a lot more common. I mean, now technology has made it possible for people to work from anywhere. In fact, I kind of have a funny story about that. At the firm I used to work for, we did a lot of doctors, and they were doctors that worked at a big medical facility, so they were W-2 employees. And so one doctor came to me that year, and he all of a sudden had a home office. And I thought, I don't think you're going to qualify for the home office. So I didn't want to come out and tell him that, it wasn't going to fly. So I tried to ask him a little bit more about it. And it turns out he was working, as a W-2 employee at a hospital during the day, and he was doing telemedicine as a freelancer at night. So he had a home office, and he would go in there and answer phone calls and web questions from people that just needed some medical advice over the internet. So, it's funny, you wouldn't really think of a doctor being online work, but really anything can be these days, I guess.
Yeah, no, anything where there's expertise, and they're finding new ways to put things online all the time. So that's why we have a gig economy. So
yep.
That's great. The other, let's see, there was one other question I had for you that wanted to, let me look at my notes here. As people are retaining, it almost seems like it's a necessity to use technology because they're online and doing that. And like you said, do you find that that's, as you were working with clients, that it's crucial to their retention, that you're using kind of the same technologies that they're familiar with versus, regular practices of, drop off your paper form to me at my office, this day on these
Right.
times when we're here?
I really think it is. I think that there's a lot of hesitation among CPAs to say, oh, my clients won't work with that. My clients won't do that. But when you really think about it, who is not on Facebook? Even, people stereotype the older generation as being resistant to using technology, but they are on Facebook looking at their grandkids. They are downloading brokerage statements online. And so what I've found working in the industry is that really the CPA is kind of the outlier if they're not providing technology. And most of the time, clients are really excited when their CPA does offer, really user-friendly ways to interact online.
Yeah, no, that's perfect. And that's also coincidentally what Canopy also does, and client portals and things that are secure and able to do that. And that's, as we've talked with lots of practitioners and the clients of practitioners, that's a big differentiator. Is they say, no, we want to access it where we are. We want to be able to do things on our phone. I want to be able to, like you said, take a picture, or if you're tracking mileage, one session we did with someone else on small business taxation and helping them do those things, talked about all these different mileage tracker apps that, gone are the days of keeping a paper log that you show an auditor. Instead, you just you enter the mileage on your app, and then when you're done working, you enter it again so that you can justify all those things in the case of an audit, or just when you're going to the end of the year. And like you mentioned earlier, when you're trying to resubstantiate an entire year's worth of material, you can you can do it the easy way with, and that's what technology is here to do, is to make it easy.
Right. And, when you think about it, real estate agents are part of the gig economy. And that's something, tracking business mileage has always, I think, been a source of frustration because they are in their cars all day. And I've never met a realtor that actually keeps a log. And I had one in my office a couple years ago, and you get their tax package and it's like, oh, I drove 100,000 miles last year, and 90% of that was business. And you say, I don't think that's really possible. Sure, But you tell people about these apps and they're like, done. They're downloading it right in their office. Like, they love it. And, I was talking to a CPA firm the other day that had just started using an app with clients where they could take a picture of receipts or tax documents and send it through an app right to their CPA. And the CPA said the overwhelming comment was, "So you've stepped up your game." So I think people like to see that stuff.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, no, that's and you're right. The real estate agent is one that is definitely at the top of that list and has been forever, right? That's still the
Right.
gig economy. No, that's perfect. And there was something on that. Oh yeah, downloading it right away and saying nope, we're gonna do those things and find that. But that's another area where you find that niche again, and you start programming for those. There are CPA firms and that only work with realtors and specialize in that. And the more you know their unique things, it makes less legwork to be familiar with what they are. And I, back to the point we made earlier, it seems like, again, there's a lot of new technologies, there's a lot of new ways to do these things, and it may seem intimidating to say, well, if I'm going to do gig economy things, I need to know what all these things, Uber and Airbnb and whatever, I need to know what every single one does and how it works and whatever else. But as you mentioned, finding a niche and going after it and saying, hey, I'm going to be the real estate, tax person, or I'm going to be the graphic designer, independent contractor tax person. It narrows it a lot to where you can just serve that community, and you get word of mouth and exposure because these people end up knowing other people because they're all independent contractors and that is their workplace.
Yeah. And I think if you really dive in and get to know one particular industry really well, you'll find other things that are similar to it. So a graphic designer might have a lot of the same needs and issues as a web developer or a blogger or a freelance writer, things like that. So, once you really dive in, you're not necessarily limited to just Uber drivers or just people that have Airbnb homes. It kind of expands once you know what you're doing.
Once you get an idea. Yeah, well, that's perfect. So, all right, with that, we'll pass it back to you to just wrap up and talk about what we've got, and any kind of final thoughts before we wrap up from you, or ways that people can reach out, get a hold of you, and find other information you've done. I think is on that very last slide we have.
All right. Well, thank you, Jeff. It was really a pleasure to talk to everybody about the gig economy today. If you want to reach out to me, my email address is jbarryjohnson@gmail.com. You can also find me on my website at jbarryjohnson.com, or I'm at Twitter at jbarryjohnson.com. So I make it pretty simple. If you have any questions, or if you do specialize in this niche and I can refer some business to you, I'd love to hear from you.
Perfect. Thanks. And we also have some resources there on your screen, as you can see. The Canopy community, this is where you can reach out to other tax pros, and you can have those conversations, and you can get some clarification on specific things and specific topics and items. All the things that you may need to is really a great community for practitioners to connect with other practitioners and answer those questions. And I'm sure, if there's not already, there will soon be a how do you address the gig economy and even virtual economy type of tax clients and things like that. So we encourage you to check that out. As we mentioned, there's several other courses that tie in very well with this. If you're getting started, or you're worried about it, or kind of nervous, or anything, we have some great courses here that are available for free. We have a couple hours on independent contractors versus employees and how to use that test, if that's a concern for you, as well as we've got also a series of how you can become a trusted advisor and work with small business taxation and some of the specifics, not necessarily around the gig economy, but small business taxation if you're just starting out or want to brush up on your skills, as well as a whole host of other topics. So we appreciate you taking the time today. We'll look forward to seeing you on another course and hope you have a great day.